Well, hello everybody. Adam Hebener here, the Better Banker with Universal Lending. Reaching out to you today with something really special. It's a brand new series that we're beginning, and it's a series that's going to help you look at two of the keys to growing successful businesses in the current marketplace. And as we all know, it's an incredibly challenging marketplace. So rather than me just spend some time giving you ideas, theory that may or may not be proven, what I've done is come out to the local market leaders, the folks who you know are leaders in your marketplace, the people who are actually being successful in selling homes and successful in helping people buy homes. And so that's really what today's about. We're going to be talking about two sides of the business. The first is mindset, and the second is really the methodology, what's actually working. So to that end, I've brought in the Hotz team up here at Kentwood Properties, DTC. This is Larry Hotz and Elizabeth Hotz, as I know most of you know.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for being here, Elizabeth. Thanks so much for your time. Can't tell you how much I appreciate being able to be here with you guys. I know that you're busy. And I'm really looking forward to your insights, because we've talked a little bit in the past about some of the things you guys have done to build business. So let's begin just kind of talking in that area of methodology, and then maybe we'll go on to mindset, help people understand really what's the mindset of a producer in this marketplace. So begin by just telling us, if you don't mind, give us kind of an overview of what you do that's working so well.
Well, we focus, I think, on two different ways of generating business. Mm-hmm. The most tried and true, of course, is the belly-to-belly, face-to-face, go out and meet the people. Brian Buffini teaches that. Mm-hmm. He does a great job of getting people to actually do what they know they should do, mm-hmm. which is to cultivate their client base and then ask for referrals. Absolutely. And I think that's still the basis of the business. However, we supplement it with leads from the internet, because I've been fortunate enough to run a successful website now since 1997. Wow. So it's got enough power in Google that it has good rankings, mm-hmm. and we generate a lot of leads off of that as well. We're not geographic farmers. We don't go around and geographically farm, mm-hmm. Although we've done a little of that in the past, but that's not really our forte. And I think everybody in the business has to pick what they're comfortable doing, and those are the two lead generating mechanisms that we are the most comfortable with.
It's interesting to hear you say, to break it down in kind of that simple way, there's the traditional methods, mm-hmm. the methods which has always worked, and then there's the internet methods. The traditional methods, I love to hear you guys talk about that, because you as the Hotz team, you guys are kind of known as being pretty tech-savvy folks. You guys spend a lot of time in social media, you spend a lot of time with video, and of course, as you mentioned, your website's great. But I'm hearing you say, and Elizabeth, do you agree with this too, is it still most of the business is coming from that traditional side?
You know, I think the best thing that we can do is that we pair them together. So especially with the social media, a lot of the stuff that we do is follow up with our friends on Facebook, you know, get out to our circles within Google+. And of course, a lot of those folks are people that we know on a personal basis. So, you know, if somebody's announced they had a new baby on Facebook, we're sending them a note, we're following up with them. You know, I think they can make a really good marriage and help you sort of, you know, hit both sides of the coin there.
Interesting. So you're able to kind of put the two together, really just integrate the old philosophy of staying in front of people, and just maybe use the technology as kind of new methods for doing that.
That's right. And people who come in via our leads on the internet, and we sell houses to, work our way, are promoted into our sphere of influence. So that way we're contacting them in the old traditional ways, by regular mail and by events that we have and by face-to-face contacts and all the things that Brian Buffini teaches. I mean, we have that down and we do it, but it's not like one excludes the other, but they complement each other.
Interesting. And one thing that I think bears repeating, and I think that is important to really zone in on from our watchers, our viewers' perspective, is that's not the sexy stuff. There's not this sort of black box idea that you guys have sort of cracked some kind of internet code or something, and as a result of that, leads are pouring in. It's the same things in today's tech-savvy market that have always worked, whether the market's up or down. It's being in front of people, spending time with them.
Well, that's right. And you also have to remember that the worst possible lead you can get is an internet lead. I mean, a high conversion rate on the internet is about 7%.
Right.
And Elizabeth here is the master of it. I don't want to say this too loud because somebody's going to pay her more money and steal her away. But she's running at 11% conversion right now on her internet leads, and that's beyond the norm. And Elizabeth, why don't you tell us what you do that's different than most people?
Well, you know, I try to make myself available. I think that's the key here is that there's a lot of resources on the internet, and people are going to go with who is in front of your face, who's available, and who's also friendly and not pushy.
Right.
So finding that fine line is something that's hard to do, but definitely, you know, you want to make yourself available because when people need help, they need help and they need an expert. The other thing I like to do is, you know, I like to do a lot of research on the internet, and social media allows me to do that. A lot of times when I'm calling a lead, I already know a lot about them just from looking up their social media profiles. And that helps me to do my research before I make the initial call.
Now that's a great tip. There's some common ground. Maybe you get to say, hey, I saw this picture or that picture, and you can talk a little bit about it. You know them a little bit.
Right.
That's a great tip with regard to just increasing that conversion. I have to tell you, I've worked with some internet companies. The highest I've ever seen is 8%. So to hear that you're 11%, that's quite a feat.
Thank you, yes.
So we're certainly talking to the right folks today. Now, one thing that just always strikes me is that this isn't new information. Most of our viewers, they're not, the fact that we're telling them database is where the money is, they're not going, oh my gosh, I never heard that before. They thought that their bus bench was selling all of their real estate. Right. They've heard that before. It seems to me that the problem in implementing this is a mindset problem. And that's the other side of the coin that I wanted to talk about. Not only what you do, but how does somebody who implements these things think? How do you approach your database with regard to questions like, what do I say when I call? How do you overcome your own call reluctance? How do you approach folks that way? What are your thoughts on that topic?
Well, I'll say for myself, you know, I hear from a lot of people that they have a set script that they like to stick to. I try to stay away from that because I don't respond well when I get a phone call from somebody that's reciting a script.
Right.
So, and I think that that's where the social media comes in, because if you kind of know a little bit about somebody, if you've seen their picture or you know, that they work for such and such company, then I think that breaks the ice, at least for me, a little bit, and I can see, you know, we're all people, we all need different services, and we need a professional to guide us through those different services. And so, you know, you're just reaching out to somebody who has given you their phone number and their email address. And, you know, they wouldn't be putting it out there if they didn't want some sort of contact.
True.
That's how I try to look at it.
So you're able, once that interaction begins, you're able to get a little confidence, a little comfort level, knowing they want to hear from me.
Right.
And Larry, how do you think about that in terms of where does the confidence come from to implement a business plan?
Well, going back to one of the things you said, Adam, you said that the database is important. But you know, the database is only as important as the relationships that are built from the database. Huge. So simply just having a database and anonymously mailing out something every once in a while is just not going to cut it. You have to build relationships. It's just exactly what we do on the internet with social media, and exactly what we try to do with internet leads is to build real human relationships. So the motivation always has to be to call and, number one, find out how the other person's doing, just like you would with any other human relationship. And once you have an idea of how they're doing, you can find out what their needs are if they have any, and you can move forward from there. But I think the key point is to develop human relationships from your database, and that, I think, is the main point of the whole thing.
So what I'm hearing you say there is you have to care about them.
Yes.
They can't just be a number in your database that you're sending stuff to. When you call these people, these have to be people you care about.
That's right. You know, Bill Moore, and that's old-fashioned real estate, because Bill Moore, who's now one of the owners of the Kentwood Company, has said for many, many years that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the most important things for people to think about.
I think that's an incredibly valuable tip because, but let me ask you this question. What would you say to that agent who's kind of sitting in front of their computer screen right now? They haven't closed a transaction, or maybe they've got that one transaction that they're nursing. They hope it comes through. They don't have the abundance of deals that the Hotz team has. They haven't had the experience of taking care of people. what would you say to them in terms of where the confidence can come from to begin to call the people they know? Because we're not giving them new information. The problem is they haven't been able to implement. What would you say to kind of encourage those folks? How do they begin? What do you need to think about? What do you say?
How did you begin, Elizabeth?
I was just going to say, I've been there.
Yeah, every successful person's been there. I've certainly been there myself.
And I feel that. And, I think what helped me, to get out there was I got involved. That was one of the things I was really good at in college, was being, at every function and community service thing known to man. So I got out there again, started getting my confidence up with just like being with people and meeting people.
That's huge.
And telling them what I do. And then, do your research. I think it's always important to have a reason to call people. And if you can find something that's going to help somebody, whether it be that they're remodeling their bathroom and you found a great website for it, or you found a house that you think might be the right house for them to look at. Just reaching out to people and in a specific and personal way is always the best.
And by the way, if you're calling somebody and asking them how the bathroom remodel is coming, you might want to ask them, would you be interested in finding out how much that bathroom remodel is going to add to the value of your house versus how much you're putting into it?
It's a great tip.
Especially if you can get them before they do that, because we've had so many clients over the years who have done major remodels, especially for an enlarging family. And by the way, they were surprised to find out the rooms didn't grow.
Right.
So all of a sudden, people who have put a lot of money into a house and added some value to the house, but more money, are disappointed to find out that they were upside down. But if you can tell them up front where they're going to end up on the value of the house versus how much money they're putting in, that's adding value to them, and you don't even have to ask for a referral, because you have just all of a sudden established yourself as somebody who cares about them and who has given them some value.
I want to kind of try to summarize, for the sake of time, what I've been hearing you say. The first, with regard to methodology, is just simply that the things that work today, despite all the high tech that's around us, despite the up and down economy, despite interest rates being where they are, all of that's just noise. What really still moves business is the same thing that moved business 30 years ago. It's being in touch with people, having relationships. Is that right?
I think that's true, and I think that's why ultimately the internet will never replace personal relationships in real estate.
Right. It'll just perhaps maybe add another way to grow those personal relationships.
And how to get there.
And with regard to methodology, I've summarized kind of what that methodology looks like. So with regard to the mindset, the way that you think, I'm hearing you say, Elizabeth, you just kind of start small, you get out there, and the confidence comes from doing it.
Right. I'm very lucky to have a mentor in my dad, but I feel like I gain the most when my dad goes out of town, and I just have to do it.
Everybody was going to think you were his trophy wife there. That's right. Not the trophy wife.
Yeah.
So that's great, that opportunity to kind of, the confidence doesn't come from your mom saying you were great. The confidence doesn't come from reading affirmations every morning. The confidence doesn't come from these mental games. The confidence only comes from one place, that's doing it.
Right.
So maybe one encouragement we can send off to folks is do the things that you know work. Here's the encouragement, they still work. There's the good news from top producing realtors in our market. It still works, the things that always worked. And in order to begin, really, the bad news is you just have to start.
That's right.
There's no way around doing the work.
It doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you do something.
There you go. Well, words to live by. Guys, thanks again for tuning in and spending a little bit of time with us talking about some of the things that are working in the marketplace. Keep your channel tuned to us, because we're going to continue to send out interviews from folks who are actually implementing ideas that are working today. And we can't wait to continue to bring you that value. So, Larry, Elizabeth, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for all you did. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Folks, once again, Adam Hebener, the Better Banker with Universal Lending. Check us out at thebetterbanker.com, and we'll look forward to next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.